Hello, welcome to Hydrology Studio. My name is Terry Stringer, and I'm going to step through a pre- and post-development project demonstrating how to design a detention pond in 3 easy steps. To keep this simple, we're going to model a single 4-acre drainage area where its development caused an increase rate in the runoff. Our task here is to design a detention pond that attenuates the post-developed flows to match the pre-developed for the 2, 10, and 100-year events. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and clear out this background map, give us some room to work with. And since we're going to be using the rational method, we want to make sure that our time interval has been set to 1 minute. The program defaults to 2, but we're going to go ahead and set that to 1 for the rational method. So we go up in here to our settings, and we click on the time interval for this project, and we change it from 2 to 1, and just click Apply, and close that. Our next step is to create 2 runoff hydrographs, one that represents the pre-developed and a second one that represents the post-developed. So I'll click on this rational button up here on the ribbon, and this automatically adds an icon to our basin model. And this is hydrograph 1, and that will represent our pre-developed condition. So I'm going to name it pre, and the runoff area over here is 4.25 acres. And the runoff coefficient is 0.68, and the user-defined time of concentration is 30 minutes. And everything else will stay the same here, so we'll click Compute, and that takes care of that. Now we'll create the post-developed hydrograph, and I'll just repeat that process. I'll click on the rational button and fill in the blanks for that one. And this one we'll name Post, and the runoff area is again 4.25 acres. And the runoff coefficient increased to 0.84, and the time of concentration decreased to 20 minutes. And so we'll compute that, and that takes care of that. And we'll just to show you how they what they look like, we'll click on the Charts tab over here, and you can see I'm going to overlay them both together by holding my Shift key, and you can see how the rate of runoff increased and the time and concentration, of course, the time to peak decreased with the post-develop. So we'll go back to our basin model here, and our next step is to create a pond and then route the post hydrograph through the pond. And we'll go ahead and set up our basin model now by just clicking on the Route button up here, and that gives us hydrograph number 3. But before we route, we need to create a pond, so that's going to be our next step. And we do that by clicking on the Pond button. And this opens up the Hydrology Studio's Pond Designer screen, where it takes you through the 3 steps that I mentioned earlier. The first step is estimate storage, and that gives us an estimate of how big our pond needs to be. And if this were not a new design, if you're just trying to match an existing, you wouldn't need to do this step. You can skip it. The second step would be to create the actual pond. That would be the physical pond itself, and then once that's done, then you go to the third step, and that's where we add the outlet structures to the pond. So first we'll get started by estimating the storage. That gives us a really good idea of how big to make our pond, and we can do that by selecting the pre and post developed hydrographs up here. The post developed will be the number 2 hydrograph, which is the post, and the pre-developed will be hydrograph number 1. And notice how the table below here had been filled in with the pre and post developed cues, and the pre, of course, will be our targets that we're going to try to shoot for. So we click the Estimate Storage button, and the program automatically calculates the required storage for each of the 3 return periods. And you'll see them here on this 4th column on this table here. And over here to the right, you'll see an actual hydrograph. And the red line shows a fictitious hydrograph, which is our target, and this hatched area here indicates the required storage. And for the 100-year event, you can see that the estimated storage that's needed is 9,757. So what we need to do now is go to the next step and create a pond that has at least that amount of volume to it. So I'll click Next, and this brings us to the Create Pond step, and here we will just give this pond a name, and we'll just call this a pre-post pond. And we will use, the program allows you to have contours. You can enter in manual, you can do underground chambers, but we're going to go ahead and do a trapezoid shaped pond just to keep things simple today. And so what we'll do here is we'll enter in a bottom elevation of 100, and the bottom length we're just going to guess at 40 feet, and a bottom width at 20. Side slopes are 2 to 1, and the site conditions kind of dictate that the depth needs to be around 7.5 feet. And so we're going to enter those numbers in, click apply, and that will automatically calculate a stage storage relationship for us. And it shows here as we go up in stage, when we get all the way up to 7.5 feet, elevation 107.5, that we have a total storage available of 15,000 cubic feet. So that well exceeds our 9757 number, but it gives us at least some room. And we'll take a look at these charts here in a minute, and we'll make sure that we have enough freeboard, but it looks like we do. I like to click on this surface chart feature to take a look at the pond and what it looks like in a 3D, just to sort of confirm that the pond looks like what I'm hoping it looks like, so I'm not just stuck looking at numbers. And of course this sort of looks like a 40 by 20 pond. So the next option up here is the stage storage. And this is an important chart. This tells us the stage storage relationship, this green line here. This top brown line indicates the top of the pond. And now you have these intermediate lines in here. And these lines indicate the storage for each of the return periods. For example, this top green line indicates the elevation in the pond at the 9757 cubic feet. And this line over here indicates the storage, of course, at just under 10,000. So these three indicate how deep the water would be in the pond at our required storages. And it looks like we've got plenty. We have a little over 1.5 feet of freeboard here, so that feels pretty good. If you're doing a pond and you don't see one of these lines, that means the pond is too small, and that this most likely the top one will be off the chart somewhere, so you just need to make your pond bigger. But this pond seems to be okay. So we're going to go to the next step, and we go down here to the lower right where we can go to the next step. And here is where we enter in our outlet structures. And I'm going to click on this little help diagram over here to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing today. And this indicates here you can add a culvert to any pond. And you can do riser structures. This is a circular riser shown in a multi-stage configuration. And there's a box section also that we can do, which is what we're going to do today. And this has all your usual cast of characters, a culvert and an orifice, a rectangular weir, and then this riser structure. So I want to do a design that has this configuration today. And we're going to add a culvert first. Then we're going to add the riser structure, and then we're going to add these two intermediate structures, the orifice and the rectangular weir. And I want to point out that the culvert is only here to convey water out of the pond. I'm not going to size the culvert to be a controlling device. It's because they only come in, of course, commercially available sizes, 12, 15, 18, 24, and so on. And it's a rare case that culvert will be sized just right to restrict the flows to our target cues. So we're going to just make it big enough to convey all the water that we want, and in our case would be 16.21 is our largest target cue. And then the riser structure is also just here to be a container for the rectangular weir and the orifice. So it's just going to be there, it's going to be up high so that the 100-year water surface elevation does not exceed its crest. And so anyway, let's get started. We'll add, well, let me back up. I want to go over the stage versus cue curve. And this is important. This is a chart that shows the target elevation versus discharge, or stage versus discharge. This is what we want to match. We want to create an outlet device so that its stage discharge matches and follows along this light blue line. And if we've done that, then our design is complete. These dotted lines indicate, similar to what you saw on the stage storage curve, these indicate the elevation of the water surface when it gets to our target storages. And this top one here is for the 100. This middle one here is for the 10-year, and this bottom one is the 2-year. And it indicates that just over elevation 104 will be our 2-year target, and the Q for that is going to be 8.39 CFS. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to add a culvert, so I'm going to click on culvert over here, and we're just going to take an estimated or an educated guess as to how big that culvert should be, and I'm going to just say it's going to be 15 inches for now. And it's going to be at invert elevation 100, which is right at the bottom of the pond. The length in this case is 50 feet, and the barrel slope is 0.5. And the end value for that is 0.013. So I click Add Update, and the program automatically calculates an actual stage discharge curve, and it's in this red here. And you can see how it exceeds what we need for these lower elevations, which is not a surprise. But then once we get up here to this, the 100-year mark, its Q is actually just around 13, which is less than what we need. We need this red line to pass through this point here. So the 15 is too small, so we're just going to increase that. So I'm going to go back over to here and edit this culvert. I'm going to put my cursor on the rise, and I'm going to introduce you to a nice feature down below here. This is an interactive tool that allows you to graphically increase or decrease whatever item you have selected up here. And so since we have the rise selected, I'm going to hit increase, and that automatically bumps it up to an 18 because the program knows about the commercially available sizes. And as you can see here, this it moved the curve over here farther out, in which it does exceed the Q from our target, and that's what we want. So we're going to go ahead and accept this 18 and continue on. Our next step is to add the riser structure, so I'll click on riser over here, and it will be a box, and its crest elevation is the first thing that we need to enter in, and that's going to be, it needs to be above this 100-year mark, which is almost at 106. So I'm going to put it in at 106 right now. The crest length on this is going to be 12 feet because it's a 3x3 structure, so I'm just going to put in 12. It really doesn't matter technically, but we'll put 12 in for that because that's what we're going to actually put in the field. And it's multi-stage, which means the flow from that device goes through the culvert. If it were not multi-stage, it would just be an independent device, but risers are always multi-stage, and it defaults to that. So I'll click Add Update to that, and it will then update the stage discharge curve. And you can see where it bumped the Q. We don't get any flow out of the pond until we get up to elevation 106. That is where the crest elevation of the riser is. So that's why you see this line moving way up here. So we're just going to ignore that for now because we're going to now add our secondary devices. So now we're going to go to the orifice, and we're going to choose orifice 1, and we're going to put in an orifice that we think might take care of the 2-year event, which is 8.39 CFS. I'm going to put in an 8-inch orifice to start, and it is multi-stage, and its invert elevation is at the bottom of the pond, so we're going to add that and add update. And now you can see where the pond is releasing flow now that the orifice is in. And where it crosses this 2-year line is the Q that it's actually producing. And it looks like it's about 3 CFS, and we need over 8. So obviously the 8-inch orifice is too small. So let's just increase it. I'm going to put my cursor up there. I'm going to go down here to our interactive tool, and I'm going to hold the control key down on my keyboard, and that will bump this up in whole inches. So there's 9, there's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. 15 looks like it's a pretty good fit because now it's following our blue line, and it's crossing right through here where we want it to. And it starts to tail back at this point. So this gives us a good indication of where we need to add our next structure, which is going to be the weir. So we'll go over here to weir, click weir 1, and it will be a rectangular weir. And the crest elevation is going to be right above the 104 mark, or right at the 104. So I'm going to put in 104 for its crest elevation, and the length of this crest, we're not sure yet, but we're going to put in 1 for now. And yes, it is multi-stage because the flow from that goes through the culvert. And I'm going to click Add Update to that. And lo and behold, it did push our line over to where we're pretty much following our target. And that's what we want. And this gives us a good preliminary design. We don't know if this actual design is going to work or not, but we're going to now fine-tune this design to where it does. And so what I'm going to do now is click on the schematic option up here, and it's going to draw a picture of a schematic, sort of it's a realistic drawing of our structure, so that again, you're not stuck just looking at numbers and hoping for the best. This tells you exactly what you have. And we have the culvert, we have a orifice, the riser structure, and our rectangular weir. So our next step is to just go ahead and do a routing, and we have a feature in the program that will allow you to do a trial route anytime you want, and we're going to do that now. And I'll click on the trial route button, and now we'll see in the drawing over here, these blue lines indicate the water surface elevations that were reached during this routing. And down here in the table, our actuals have been filled in, and we can see that we're pretty close. The 2 year is 8.14, the 10 is 11.35, the 100 is a little bit over at 16.4. So now what we just need to do, if we want, we can just fine tune these devices to where they match exactly, and or we can just keep some of them where they are. It really depends on if you want to keep things at even numbers or not, but I just want to demonstrate to you just how accurate we can get with this. So I'm going to click on this this orifice, and we're going to change its size to where this 8.14 goes up to 8.39. And we can do that just by simply continuing to increase the size and then hit the trial route. Or we can click on this auto route button, and each time we make an edit, it's going to do the routing for us. And that's a real time saver, so we'll do that. And I'm going to continue to increase the orifice, and we're now at 15.5, and we're at 8.36 CFS. So we're going to go ahead and keep that there. 15.5 is a round number, and so we're going to call that good. And you'll note that the maximum elevation that was reached during that routing is 103.84. So that's where we need to set the next structure as we go up, and that's this rectangular weir, which we had initially set at 104. So now we're going to set that to 103.84, or I'm going to put it at 103.85, just for a nice rounder number. And if I click update to that, it automatically does the routing, and we can see now that the Q actual is just a little bit above the 11.44 that we need. So we can do two things. One is to decrease the size of the crest length, and so we'll try that first. And so we'll just start to decrease that and watch how it's doing the routing for us. And as I continue to decrease this, you're seeing the 10-year event go down to 11.4645, right at 11.44. So that's right where we need it to be. And if you look down here at the 100-year event, we're at 16.16. So I would say this is a final design. It's a good design. It works. And so that's all we need to do. And if you want to look at the actual trial route hydrographs, you can do that here as well. And whatever row you click on down here on this trial route table, it will show the corresponding hydrographs. But that's all we need. And so we have a design. We have an 18-inch culvert. We have a 15.5-inch orifice, and we have a riser structure at 106, and we have a rectangular weir that has a 0.84 width in its crest, and it's at elevation 103.85. And all of this, it gets documented on the reports when you print that out. You can also get a hard copy of this chart by just right-clicking on it. So we'll now click Finish, and now we'll go back to our basin model, and here we will complete the routing. And I just double click on that, and we're going to call this hydrograph pond route. And everything else is already filled in for us, the inflow hydrograph and the name of the pond that we named pre-post. And so we just click compute, and that's it. And now we can click on the charts over here and see an actual inflow outflow hydrograph. And along the top up here, of course, you could view the 10-year and the 100-year. And I like to oftentimes just overlay the pre-developed with the pond route, just to kind of see how close we got to the very original. And you can see here, the blue is what's coming out of the pond. The red is what Mother Nature had before we developed it. And we're very, very close to that. So I would say this is a good design. So this concludes this lesson. Thank you for watching, and thank you for choosing Hydrology Studio.